Hello. So I figured I'd just make a quick video to one test out the fact that I have what's meant to be a pretty good microphone now. And also just because, you know what, I cannot be bothered to update Twitter on what I've been playing and give it all a score. So I'm just gonna vlog. Um I might make an edited video in the future. I've got a couple of topics, but right now I'm more concerned with work. I got some stuff going down in my life, which means I'm probably not going to bother doing uploading edited videos for a bit. Maybe in a month or so. Who knows? I got a couple of things I want to do. I really want to complain about Yakuza. I really want to complain about RGG Studios because I love the guys. They've been making stuff I like for years, but they've made so many games and there's so many things which I feel have been problems for a long time. They aren't going back on. And currently, I feel RGG's got one of those fan bases where one of the most annoying things I think with any fan base is when a flaw becomes something that that people like what ironically like pointing out that they have a bit of a stupid trope, which happens a lot, where a character will leave a gun lying around after beating a bad guy, and the bad guy's just on the floor and the gun's just lying around, and you get to a point where I'm like, yeah, this is actually kind of something they should stop doing, because it feels quite stupid, but they keep putting it in their games multiple times. Like they've made a lot of them. Like in RGG, we've beaten up the governor of Tokyo in two separate titles now. So I can't blame them for reusing a few ideas, but they it annoys me when stuff gets to the point where you've got fans who are either just come out full on and say, you know what, I think this is fine, or just be like, yeah, it's kind of stupid that they keep doing this stuff. And I want to talk about that as a whole. I wouldn't say it's hit Kojima levels. Like Kojima's the weird area where every time Kojima makes a new game, people debate what's good and bad about it, blah, blah, blah. But what is distinctive is that Kojima, there's always a million hits YouTube video which argues that some aspect which is generally seen as bad is bad on purpose. Have the balls to say, you know what, I think Metal Gear Solid 5's Ubisoft style systems are actually quite good, as opposed to going, no, it's a satire on war. We have a phone game bit where you circle around in a thingy and you go and do all these filler missions because it's a satire on how child reigning war. And yeah, I'm not kidding when I say there's a video with near 1 million hits, which is basically that. God, Jesus Christ! People will praise Kojima with more insulting language than anyone has ever insulted David Cage with. That's just me going off on a topic. I do want to talk a bit about Yakuza in the future, because there's a lot of stuff I'd like to see them improve on. There's some stuff they've been criticized for, which I actually think they've responded to in too strongly, to the point where some stuff they did in the past, which they no longer do, I wish they would go back to doing. I just want to talk about them. That's partly because I'm going to just briefly talk about what I've been playing lately. I finished Yakuza Kiwami 2, and that was one of those games which really made me I really want to complain about some of this stuff. Because for the start of the game, I thought it was quite good. I liked probably the first quarter a lot. But I felt it was very slow and obnoxious in how many random battles pop up. And I want to talk briefly about why random battles are kind of shit a lot of the time. Because I think there's this idea that random battles are bad because they're random battles, or people don't like random battles because they're random battles. Two separate things, one a defense, one a white, blah, blah, blah. I think what's bad about random battles to me is they're filler content, basically, is when not that they're always filler content, but when they are filler content. Here's the thing. I think if you have a dungeon crawler and you have random battles, and you can actually build a nice amount of stress in the play of oh my God, am I going to get through here? I hope this fucking thing doesn't pop up. I'm having to carefully monitor my health. Random battles in Yakuza are basically filler by default because there's never any risk from them. Because you can always just pop into a shop and fully restore your health. Weirdly, I'd say the best sort of random battle approach Yakuza's had is in stuff like Dead Souls or Like a Dragon, where they have literal dungeons and those battles can turn into an actual threat. In playing through Cryo 2, it just became just such a nuisance because you can't run away from them, and they do pop up so frequently, and it is just so annoying to feel like the game could be so much better paced if I was just going from quest to cutscene to fight actually designed by a person, not some algorithm just throwing out a random dude for you to beat up to waste my time and level up a bit. And on the topic of leveling, that sucked so much of the fun out of the game, because playing through the first Cryo, I got really good at like the combat, just parrying guys, countering moves. It got quite fun to really master this system. And Cryo 2, I just felt like I leveled out of it to the point where the game didn't require much skill, which is the problem with a lot of RPG systems. They end up taking away from the skill ceiling, from how good you really need to be, and making it so you can just rely on very boring systems. Like, one weird thing is you can actually level into a perk which removes the stamina meter, which is hilarious because you can level up the stamina meter, but you can get this perk which removes it, which I never did because I was like, this is such a bad thing to have. I'm going to just pretend it isn't there, because some of the fun in Cryo 2's combat is actually having to manage your stamina and be careful with how long you combo and, how much you run, because your character can just get drained. But no, they include something you can upgrade, which lets you completely turn it off. Insanely stupid, but also the game, I just felt like by the second half, I was leveled so ridiculously, and I don't know how it happened because I'd already gone sick of the random battles and was trying to avoid them. That I basically, all the fun, big boss encounters, which I wouldn't mind having multiple tries at to beat, really nail them, get a hold of that, learn that moveset, and just get perfect timing. Just some of them I was just beating first time easy. Others I was like, oh, I fucked up this first one, but I wasn't paying attention. Now I'm ready, and just wipe the floor with them. So much more time in the combat was spent with these blah blah shitty random battles that I just didn't. And then the actual big fights you build up to aren't that satisfying. I think both Cryo games are fairly weak narratives, so there wasn't a ton of me for that. I'm just saying I was disappointed with Cryo 2, and I think a lot of it is really down to the RPG mechanics and the random battle system and stuff, just draining a lot of the fun out of it. I would have much rather played a game where I just put it on hard, which I want hard, and it's satisfying to learn and master. Let me bring up difficulty, because I've heard somewhere, and I might be completely wrong about this, that the difficulty actually affects your XP, so you gain more, a higher difficulty, which is fucking stupid. I know a lot of games that do that, and it seems ridiculous to me, because it just creates this weird system where, like, why are you making the game? Why are you giving me direct benefits to how easy the game is by playing on a harder setting? Now, I get stuff like having unlockable extra costumes and stuff like that, but having a system like leveling is already basically a way to make games easier. This is why I don't take a lot of the Souls fans all that seriously when they go on about the sheer challenge and skill. Like, you go on any Souls thing and there's a ton of guides to like how to grind or what's a good character type, and I just feel like if you're going to look up a grind guide or a character build guide, you might as well just have an easy mode at that point. Like, who gives a shit? You're already basically cheating. Oh, it's the community, like, fuck off. I am very tired of games which are big because they give you a lot of filler, but they include some met thing which makes your character's skills go up. I like Ape Escape. I like when Ape Escape 1 is like you can come back with your new items, but we're not going to boost your health or that. You know what? It's weird. I want to pray. I can't go with a video without talking about Naughty Dog being a good developer, because I like how the only game with a big open world chunk they made. I should go back on that, because these guys made Jak 3, which has most of the same problems I've been complaining about. But yeah, it's interesting. The modern Naughty Dog with their Uncharted games, with Lost Legacy, they did include a semi-open world large chunk, and then you don't get any character upgrades at all in it. Like, it's really just there for your own enjoyment if you want to do all these extra side missions, but you can completely ignore it, because it doesn't actually, you won't be too weak to continue the story. And if you get really into the game and decide, I'm just going to do all these extra side stuff before continuing the main story, you won't be horribly overpowered, and the game is still fun. So yeah. On the topic of RPG systems, my game of the year of 2022, God of War Ragnarok. Yeah, I don't think it's not hugely controversial. I mean, it's one of these things people will fight over. My stance for why is less of, oh, this is amazing, it's one of my favorite games of all time. More, it's just the best I felt of the year, the thing I like the most. I like Bayonetta 3 a lot. That came close, but the ending, less over whinging about how my headcanon says Bayonetta's gay, because I found a tweet from Kamiya, and there's some artists, one of the artists drew her as a lesbian or whatever. More just that I felt the chunks of that game are quite weak, just because I feel it's disappointing it ends on such a sort of weak series of bosses, considering how good some moments are. I really wish they'd designed a system so you didn't have to constantly pause to switch out your move sets. There's a lot to like in Bayo 3, and I definitely got to play it some more after beating it. But God of War Ragnarok sort of takes it, because first of all, it's probably my favorite narrative in a God of War game since the first game. It's did get me a bit. I think if you're a big God of War buff who's played through all of them, there's a lot of stuff here where it does a good job of basically being a cap to the 2018 game, which I wasn't as huge on as a lot of people, but also kind of bringing back ideas and themes which have been boiling under the surface since the first game, and giving it like a solid wrap up without making something that is at all, really requires you to go back and play those. So yeah, I really appreciated what they did with the narrative, with Kratos in particular. I felt it really did bring it to a nice close, and I'm so pleased they didn't do something stupid like make a trilogy out of these. Combat, absolutely fantastic. I appreciate how fun it was to play through on God of War difficulty, which was what I went with, the hardest setting. I'd say this is the best God of War as far as playing on the hardest settings go. It's just takes a lot of skill, but at the same time, it doesn't. It avoids the enemy bullet sponge, damage sponge stuff a lot. Like, it's still quite satisfying to just tear your way through foes. You just have to be quite careful doing it. One trope I'll say, not everything does, but like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta and definitely Yakuza does, which I really am a bit sick of, is healing systems where the game basically lets you just, if you want to not worry about Breath of the Wild also, not really in the same category, but where if you want, you can just down items to keep yourself alive. And I always found that annoying. Once again, people complain about like, oh, you can go and change the difficulty, here's these accessibility options, and I'm like, it's far less obnoxious than like Devil May Cry every time you take too much damage, just being like, do you want to heal? It puts up a menu, do you want to use a healing item to fully restore you? And you can use as many as you want, so you can just spam your way through the game. I guess I should briefly address the big criticism, which is the NPC diet. I think it's pretty bad. It's pretty annoying, not just on the puzzle thing, but it doesn't feel like it's as carefully crafted as like a Naughty Dog thing, for example, with how characters talk. like the actual dialogue is pretty good, but then you've got stuff where there's just points where it triggers some dialogue, and it can be weird. Like there's a bit where I was just tearing the jaw off a werewolf, and then my companion just decided to talk about how nice the view was. It's like, I've just ripped this guy's jaw off. Like, I've got like he's a gory, bloody mess, and you're talking about how nice the view is. And yeah, they do the same thing with them trying to offer advice, like, hey, you're on fire, brother. You should roll. It's like, you say this a lot. I know I'm on fucking fire. But yeah, outside of, I guess I'll briefly talk about the RPG stuff. That's really weird because the game, more so than 2018, feels like it's like sheepish about its RPG systems. Because what's interesting is you have all these systems to build armors and stuff, but early on you will get you will get like this ideal loadout where, okay, your move, the stuff you've got equipped gives you additional moves and systems like new parries where you can whirl your change around and knock projectiles back, give you access to witch time. And then you can pretty much ignore all the upgrade systems for your gear, which I appreciate a lot. Because you've got the ones which give you interesting systems. Just ignore the rest. That stuff's crap for people who want to like just who can't avoid getting hit and instead want to just up their health. So that I thought was interesting. So you can actually ignore that, and you're given like additional mechanics for doing it. But it still feels weird. I think it's really lame, the shield system they have, where you have to like switch out your shields to get different shield abilities. Like it would be way cooler if you could, if you just had shields attached to your different move sets. And it feels weird, cool as it is when Kratos gets like another iconic weapon from the prior games, which, you know, you thought they'd forgotten about. I am disappointed he doesn't get like a full-on brawler move set this time. Like I thought that would have been cool, particularly because they did sort of build one in 2018, just not a great one. Instead, they seem to have cut that back, and hand-to-hand combat is just kind of shitty still. So I'm disappointed. I thought when I realized there was no like move list for fists, I thought, oh, they're gonna have some unlockable moment where you get some cool thing and then you unlock the whole thing and you've got a no. Basically, I think they could have done more stuff to keep you out of the menus, which I still think they suck, but they're less offensive here than in the previous one. And if I was gonna, you know, really when I bring up these games, I think only Devil May Cry 5 avoids menu obnoxiousness. So yeah, I'm giving it to God of War. Is there anything else to ramble about as far as I've been playing through a lot of 7 out of 10s, I feel like late. I played through Callisto Protocol. That's fun to play for like a week and then sell on eBay and forget about. I played through Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Same thing. I'm currently playing High on Life. Feel similar about it. It's got Game Pass to play. Hi-Fi Rush, which is I'm not liking as much as a lot of people. It's a good game, but first of all, I will admit I'm kind of shitty at rhythm games. Next of all, I will just say I don't think it's anywhere near like a classic kind of best of platinum, best of Clover level. It's good, but not nowhere near there. Like it's no Beautiful Joe. I wouldn't even put it up to like a Max Anarchy or something. It's better than say a Nier 2 or probably, I don't know. I feel really weird because I've just realized I just don't enjoy it that much. Probably it's partly me not being great at rhythm stuff. Like I played through Devil May Cry 5 again just because there wasn't a ton to play and they dropped it on PSN. And I was playing through that on like the legendary Dark Knight difficulty on a fresh save with no, starting a fresh character. So that was easier to me than Hi-Fi Rush. Devil May Cry 5 is a very easy game in general. It's something I find one of these reasons I don't buy like the hardcore weeb groups who make a big because it's like that game is significantly easier than DMC. It's the only Devil May Cry game that's easier than Devil May Cry 5 is Devil May Cry 2. And make no mistake, I think Devil May Cry 5 is fantastic. It's my second favourite next to the first Devil May Cry, but it is a very easy game. Like, I only realised about the microtransactions it has playing it on the PS5, because when I played through on PC, I never lost all my health till over halfway through when I was playing as Dante. So over halfway into the game, I finally lost all my health in a fight. And then I just decided not to use any of the healing items. And in this one, I was playing on proper, like the Legendary Dark Knight difficulty. Well, I'm like, this is probably meant for people who've beaten the game before and already have plenty of moves and have gotten a big health bar from buying upgrades and stuff. So I'm going to let myself use items. And I realized if you don't have items, it takes you to a microtransaction store where you can pay in game to come back, pay real money to come back to life. And I was like, only Devil May Cry fans would not complain about that. These guys are so fiercely loyal. They will definitely not bitch about this very obvious, very sleazy use of microtransactions. I was going on about Hi-Fi Rush. Yeah, weirdly, that's a Japanese game which doesn't do the... I actually think it might do healing items. I'll have to check carefully, and because I know there's a shop, and I mostly just go buy all the new moves. I think it's fun. The humor is not my taste. I way prefer the Rick and Morty, like High on Life knockoff stuff, where, I admit part of it is just that it is, more adult humor, but Hi-Fi Rush feels very, kids cartoon in its approach, which I think is probably part of why a lot of people like it, because I feel there's a very high crossover between the, more hardcore, Japanese anime kind of crowd and like traditional children's cartoons. Like I think the only like adventure-y Western action thing I've watched in a long time is Arcane. Like I never touched whatever you watch, is it Gravity Falls or Legend of the Avatar or whatever. Only Avatars I know are the blue ones. So I don't know. I feel like those guys probably are used to this sort of thing. I don't find it that funny. I find there's more cutscenes than I thought there would be. I'll put it that way. Gameplay's fine, but it feels to me like it's really down to mastering rhythm, and I prefer the Devil May Cry, like let's have fun and just mess around and do epic combos, or the sort of God of War, like let's just smash this guy into a wall and cut his head off stuff. To me, the rhythm-based thing isn't that fun. So yeah, I like High on Life better, I guess. I'm thinking of maybe picking up the Harry Potter game in AIM, or I'm definitely getting the new Yakuza Ishin, Like a Dragon. I'm very mixed on what I'm saying about it. I don't like how they seem to have more RPGized it. Like they now have you using like cards to summon special moves, which seem to be on cooldown meters, which like I feel the guys at the studio have been pretty poor at balancing their games that well, and I really wish I'm very interested to see what they do with the new the alternative Yakuza 7, as they're calling it in Japan. They're calling it like Yakuza 7, the man who erased his name, Gaiden, something like that. Really silly. I mean, like a Dragon 7 Gaiden, the man who erased his name. So like an alternative Yakuza 7 for those who don't like the turn-based RPG and want a completely different game which is no way connected to Yakuza 7, completely different systems. But they have been talking about how it's going to actually not just... I mean, it's Japanese, so it's hard to really tell due to all the, like, translation stuff. Like, you've heard how crazy some of these Japanese genre names are, where every game has, like, they've came up with a completely new name for its genre. But they have talked about it being less like an RPG, not just Like a Dragon, the Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon, the turn-based RPG one, but other ones. So I'd be interested, because if it does, it is something I can just put on the hard difficulty and have a fun, challenging time with the combat. And because I think Yakuza's combat isn't that bad. I think it's something I wish they would work on more. I think the main issue is that they tend to make it more for it's always been near that, like near being a grind game where it's never felt like they cared that much about trying to make master a really good combat system. Like playing Lost Judgment, I thought that I just get kind of annoyed because of so many moves which just lead to long cinematics of a guy doing something cool while you wait so you can take back control. And then there are only like 3 proper long chunks of gameplay where you aren't being constantly interrupted by jaws and stuff. I know I want to talk about Lost Judgment in my if I do a Yakuza RGG Studios complaints thing, because both it and Like a Dragon, I both really like some parts of them, and then I hate other parts. So that will have to come up. But yeah, I hope Gaiden does mark a considerable shift in style, and they are making something more for the people who liked like the original Yakuza on PS2 a lot, Yakuza 6 a lot, which I think is really underappreciated for what it does. I'm looking forward to that, and I will definitely play Ishin. I may well end up coming out and complaining about a lot of stuff. I know it's definitely going to be censored because I've spoiled some story stuff for me, and I'm like, no, some of the stuff they're just not going to do in the modern day. People, I made a video on it a while back, and people aren't aware of how heavily those games have, like, nearly every re-release. Like, ignore the whole English localization drama. Every re-release they've done, they've usually removed or tweaked certain stuff. I mean, they are, it partly is, Japan stuff, I'd imagine, because, these are guys who will just pull something from sale because, like, one of the actors snorted some cocaine and take it away and then, like, recast. So, you don't want to, anyone who thinks Japan is, like, the culture of, like, artists sticking by their work and not changing anything is completely fucking stupid. But there are also, like, it is hard to say because I think I pointed out in that video that some of the language in the Japanese version of Yakuza 4 was re-recorded, which I don't think they'd have, like, the Western version also has different censorship-ish things, but I feel like when they're actually re-recording Japanese dialogue, that's probably for the sake of not offending people in Japan. So I don't know who's going to be responsible. But Ishin, Kenzan not coming out because that is way too offensive nowadays. I'm sorry, wait for the fan patch. Ishin, they're probably going to change some stuff, which I don't know. We'll see how good the game is. Maybe it will surprise me. Yeah, that's it. That's my vlog. Half an hour of me rambling. Bye.